Right now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is speaking to reporters in Kingston. Let's listen live.
And communications regarding the situation with Paul Bernardo. We must first turn our thoughts to the families. They need to be kept at the center of everything we do. The French and Mahaffey families that are still mourning the loss of their daughters decades later. We need to ensure that at the center of everything that we do as a society and as a justice system remembers the victims and the families of victims and keep them at the center of our thoughts and actions. The Public Safety Minister has engaged with Corrections Canada to ensure that adjustments and changes are in place and that cases such as this one in the future will get all the attention and compassion they deserve for the families of the victims. Good morning. Talking about the contaminated water in Saguenay. We know that water is being filtered temporarily, but that is going to cost several $million. Is the federal government going to commit to pay for that, given that the military base where the contamination came from is under federal jurisdiction? I was in Saguenay a few weeks ago at Bagotville specifically. I spoke with individuals, families, and the mayor of Saguenay. I noted that we will be part of the solution, and I know that there are discussions underway. We know that the military base did have some responsibility in that contamination of water. I also know that people in Saguenay are extremely proud of their water quality. And so we will ensure that we are there to help restore the image and reality for that lovely community.
CTV National News. Prime Minister, I'm glad you brought up the Mahaffey and French families, because I also want to ask you, they've said this process of the transfer of Paul Bernardo to this lower security prison lacked transparency, accountability, and they've also asked for him to be sent back to a maximum security facility. How will you address the concerns of the families?
As you know, we need to put the concerns and the continued grief and anguish of the families at the center of whatever we do, with compassion and thoughtfulness towards the losses they felt that all Canadians who were following the news and who were around at that time of these terrible, terrible murders followed through as well. The Corrections Canada report that's coming out today will be highlighting what worked, what were the thinking and processes behind it. But as you know, our Minister of Public Safety has engaged with Corrections Canada to ensure that going forward there are lessons learned about how we make sure that sensitivity and putting the concerns of the families are at the heart of any significant decisions like this. There are always lessons to learn, and we're going to be following up on them.
Alex Mazer, Global News. I just want to ask about the BC port strike. Why did you only convene the incident response group yesterday? Was it meant to pressure the union to back down? And can you answer in English and French, please?
I think we were all dismayed, to be honest, when we found out that a good deal that had been worked out at the table, that was agreed to both by union leadership and by the management, had been suddenly rejected, and they were back in a strike position. This was unacceptable, just because, first of all, the impact on workers, on families, on businesses right across the country of this prolonged strike has been significant. And is a real problem for not just families who rely on jobs that connect with the world and rely on inputs to factories, from auto to everything else. But we needed to continue to make sure that people have faith in the collective bargaining process. So when the union turned its back and brought forward a fresh strike mandate, we did have to gather as an incident response group to talk about the impacts on the family and on the economy, and to look at the possible paths forward that we're looking at. We always know that the best deals are always found through negotiations at the bargaining table, and that's what we're focused on. But we also know that this strike could not continue, and we're glad to see that the union is reconsidering the good offer that was on the table and the agreement that was reached both by union leadership and accepted by both union leadership and management. Nous étions évidemment préoccupés par l'impact.
We were obviously concerned by the economic impact of the strike. We will always push to have any labor disputes settled at the bargaining table. That is where the best solutions are always found. But we do also accept that it was starting to become very untenable for families and businesses across the country to have the country that is so anchored in trade with the world be paralyzed by this strike.
Canada, and what message do you have for him regarding democratic concerns over there?
I have expressed my concerns a number of times. Canada is and will always be a steadfast friend to Israel. We recognize the violence going on right now is difficult for people across the region, both Israelis and Palestinians. We're calling for de-escalation and peace and working through some of the flashpoints that are having. Canada has a long-standing position that settlements and the settlement process is illegal, and we need to stand against that. We remain steadfast friends of Israel, but every now and then we do have to point out where we disagree, and that this is one issue that we disagree on. We're also very concerned about the judicial reforms that the Israeli government is determined to move forward with. These are things that when you make deep changes to judicial principles and approaches in a democracy, you need to strive to create and find greater consensus across party lines among people around big changes like that. And I'm going to continue to encourage Prime Minister Netanyahu to look for greater consensus as they look at judicial reforms.
Will you invite him, though? Will you invite him, though?
That's not on the table right now.
Hello, Mr. Prime Minister. Ian McAlpine from the Kingston Week Standard. Sir John A. Macdonald's legacy has taken a bit of a beating over the last couple of years. His statue was taken down 2 years ago. Bellevue House, where he once lived, is being reimagined. So what can the Canadian government do to repair his legacy, if that's even possible?
Well, I think history belongs to all Canadians, and a mature, responsible community and a mature, responsible country should be open to have conversations around historical figures that, did good things and did bad things, as any human being will do. And how we teach and understand and commemorate legacies, how we reflect on what it means to move forward on reconciliation while learning from both the successes and mistakes of the past is a conversation that's happening at the community level, it's happening at the national level, and will continue. What we need to do is make sure we're listening to people, listening to the broad range of perspectives of people who've been hurt by terrible errors of the past, as well as people who look at this great country we are today and know that it's because of leaders of generations past who were not perfect but pushed us towards where we are today. A mature country should be able to have those discussions in a responsible, informed, and sensitive way, and that's what I see here in Kingston, and that's what I continue to see across the country.
Mr. Prime Minister, you didn't directly answer the question about your public safety minister. Do you have confidence in him to continue after this handling of the Bernardo transfer file?
I have an amazing team in Ottawa and an amazing group of MPs right across the country who are committed to serving their country every single day. And anyone in my cabinet, by definition, has my confidence. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Prime Minister discussing a wide range
Comments from the Prime Minister in Kingston this morning talking about the fact that the Corrections Canada will be coming out with a report on the transfer of killer Paul Bernardo to a medium security facility back in May. A lot of questions about, what could come from that review there. The Prime Minister talking about putting the victims and the victims' families at the center of processes like this to make sure that, things like this don't happen again, and adjustment and changes are necessary. You just heard him ask direct a question about his confidence in Marco Mendocino. He didn't specifically refer to his Minister Mendocino specifically, but said he had confidence in all of his cabinet ministers, and also talked about the BC port strike as well, which of course he said is dismayed that a good deal was worked out and rejected, and he hopes for a better outcome as the talks continue out there now.